ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا إنه من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الغمة وتركنا على المحجة البيضاء. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا وقدوتنا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله واتقوا خيرا في غيره واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent and the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah, the Sustainer, the Cherisher, the Creator of the heavens and the earth, and I bear witness that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is His final messenger. Dear brothers, dear sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. My dear brothers and sisters, I begin my khutbah by inviting you to observe with me a common situation that we run into in this life, in our relationships on a daily basis. Think of situations where we have disagreements and arguments with people. You personally recall incidents in which you've argued with people, and it was a situation where there are kind of two opinions, two positions on a matter. And I would like for you to recall, dear brothers and sisters, the possible approaches that you have taken to resolve the matter. If it was resolved, or if it wasn't resolved, what have you done? Normally people, dear brothers and sisters, when they engage in conflict, where they're disagreeing with somebody, we can normally think of two possible things they might do in terms of their attitude towards the issue, towards the other, towards their position on the matter. Either, if you recall yourself in a situation like this, you will take the approach of, I am right. I am right. The other person is wrong. Right? And I would like for you to reflect upon the outcome, the result of that approach. Think back, dear brothers and sisters, what has happened? Or what has happened when the other person has taken that approach with you, where they've told you, you're wrong and I'm right. No matter what you tell me, there's nothing you can convince me of that will get me to say I am wrong, I'm not sorry for what I've done, you're the one who should be feeling guilty, you're wrong, and so forth. Where does that situation, where does that approach lead us usually? In conflicts. You know what it does? When people refuse to acknowledge guilt, and when there is ego involved, and the unwillingness to apologize, and where everybody sees themselves as being correct, that they're the holders of the truth, conflicts deepen. Resentments get deeper. Isn't it true? Divisions widen. Isn't it true? We normally, when people deal with us with that attitude, we tend to even dislike them more. So we get repelled from people who approach us with the attitude of, you're wrong and I'm right. Very basic thing, dear brothers and sisters, that we encounter on a daily basis. What if, alternatively, you find the other person mellowing, coming to you, even if they feel that they are right, they come to you and apologize. They soften and actually precede you by declaring, I'm sorry, I am sincerely sorry for what I've done, I am guilty, please forgive me. Even brothers and sisters, if you think you're right and they're wrong, what does that tend to do to the heart? It softens it, doesn't it? You notice, dear brothers and sisters, when people are willing to apologize and acknowledge guilt, no matter who's right or who's wrong, when they're willing to acknowledge guilt and confess to the fact that they might be wrong, and it's sincere, it tends to resolve issues and heal hearts. It soothes heart. It provides a resolution, an exit out of the problem. Contrast it to the first scenario, where there's ego involved, where there's an unwillingness to say, I'm sorry, there's no way I'm going to apologize. Dear brothers and sisters, these situations that are illustrated right now, which are very common in our lives, underscore very fundamental laws in life that Allah is seeking to teach us about, educate us about, so that we can grow as human beings. SubhanAllah, dear brothers and sisters, It is actually in the willingness of the human being to exercise humility, to say, I can possibly be wrong about this or that. I'm not always right. It is in that acknowledgement and the confession of guilt, no matter what the situation is. It is only in that willingness will the human being find resolution, peace, and growth. Who declares this, dear brothers and sisters? Allah Azza wa Jalla. Allah, brothers and sisters, is sharing with us a heavenly formula that can literally, brothers and sisters, take us from situations of darkness to situations of light. That can provide ease, that can provide an exit out of complications in life, that can actually allow us to grow spiritually. A formula that can allow us to grow as human beings, to become better. A formula, dear brothers and sisters, that can actually impact your faith. You know, when we're feeling hard, our hearts are feeling hard, and we feel constriction in our chests when we deal with human beings, or whatever the situation, no matter what the situation is. Allah Azza wa Jalla is sharing with us, dear brothers and sisters, a divine instruction from the heavens that can soften your hearts and allow faith to enter into your heart. SubhanAllah. What is this formula, brothers and sisters? It's precisely what I shared with you. Humility and willingness to acknowledge guilt. To say, I am actually flawed, I am weak, I am wrong, and I confess it. How many of us, dear brothers and sisters, are willing to acknowledge guilt? First with human beings. We'll come back to Allah. With human beings, with your family, with people that you run into, you run into issues with. How often have we found ourselves willing to say, I'm sorry, and I apologize, and I'm going to be the first one to say it before the other party says it? How often have we found ourselves doing this? And how often, dear brothers and sisters, have we found ourselves constantly insisting that we're right and that others are wrong? And you know where that leads. SubhanAllah, dear brothers and sisters, let me take you back to a story from the Quran in which Allah reveals incredible gifts, amazing gifts, instructions that, as I said, can elevate us as human beings. If we're complaining of faith, dear brothers and sisters, if we're complaining of hearts that are hard, that do not find the taste of Iman, this is one of those formulas that inshallah can change your life. Listen to what happens in this story. It's a story of the creation of Adam alayhi salam. It's a story in which we find the devil, Shaitan, exhibiting a certain attitude. Which attitude was it? It was an attitude of ego, arrogance and ego. When Allah created Adam and asked the angels to prostrate, they all prostrated. The devil, the Shaitan, refused to prostrate. But Allah gave him an opportunity. Give him an opportunity. It's obvious who's wrong. It's obvious who is rejecting the command of Allah. The Shaitan is. So Allah, He's patient. He is wise. So He still gives the Shaitan an opportunity to say, I am sorry, I am guilty. This is how Allah deals with His creation. Unlike us, we don't give people opportunities. We condemn them right away, we judge them right away. No. He gave him the opportunity even though he didn't deserve it. He said, why did you not prostrate when I commanded you? What did he say, dear brothers and sisters? Did he not know he was wrong? What happened is that his arrogance and ego blinded him. Right off the bat, he says, no, I am right. I am better than him. How often do we find ourselves doing this, dear brothers and sisters, with human beings around us, in which we refuse to even entertain the possibility that they're right, that they're actually better. Automatically we say, we're better than them, my opinion is right, my decision is better, who are they to come and question? Right? The Shaitan did that, dear brothers and sisters. He said, I am better than him. You created me from fire, and you created him from clay. Automatically I'm better. And subhanAllah, who is he arguing with? Allah Azza wa Jalla. Arguing with Allah Azza wa Jalla and insisting he's right. What happens, dear brothers and sisters? That very arrogance and ego landed him in further darkness, and ultimately Allah condemned him to the hellfire. In contrast, look at what happens with Adam alayhi salam, where his trajectory takes him. He puts him in Jannah. He tells him, enjoy it. Eat from any food you want, drink from any drink that you want, but do not eat from that tree. In one moment in which the Shaitan whispers to Adam alayhi salam to disobey Allah Azza wa Jalla, and Adam forgets, not because he wants to reject Allah Azza wa Jalla, because he wants to disobey and break the right one is supposed to. No, because he forgot. And the shaitan played his trick and it worked. So in one moment, Adam alayhi salam forgets the command of Allah Azza wa Jalla and he eats from the tree. In which we know what happens. In the aftermath, we know that subhanAllah, he was unclothed, he found himself naked, and then his wife, and then they started scrambling. They realized instantly what they've done. But they wanted to be rescued. Realized that they needed the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Look at how Allah saved them. Here is the lesson for all of us, dear brothers and sisters. Within that story, Allah is sending all of us a message, a lesson to learn. That if you find yourself in a situation of darkness, where you've committed a mistake, made a sin, committed a blunder, don't be arrogant. So what does Allah tell us about Adam alayhi salam? فَتَلَقَّى آدَمُ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ. Who taught him what to say? Who taught him what to think? Allah Azza wa Jalla. Because Adam alayhi salam was going to become a model for all of us to follow. This story will show us how to save ourselves and get ourselves out of trouble when we commit a blunder. We don't know, brothers and sisters, what's right and what's wrong. We don't know how to behave in a manner that pleases Allah Azza wa Jalla. Who teaches us? Allah Azza wa Jalla. There are those who are willing to learn, and there are those who are willing to reject and be rejected. SubhanAllah. So Allah tells us what happens. He reveals to Adam what to say. He teaches him how to think about the situation of difficulty. فَتَلَقَّى آدَمُ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ. Allah taught him the very words that he should utter to save himself and his wife. What were the words? قَالَ رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا. Right away they thought, they humbled themselves, they recognized the mistake, their brothers and sisters, and Allah made them aware that they needed to acknowledge it and say, رَبَّنَا, oh, they went right away to him. They realized that they needed to go to him in that time of darkness, in that moment of affliction. They're about to lose Jannah. They're about to lose Allah Azza wa Jalla. What do they say? Allah teaches them to say the following. رَبَّنَا, our Lord, come to me, Allah said. Come to me when you find yourself in trouble. Come to me when you sin. Come to me when you make a transgression, but I want you to do the following. I want you to be humble. Confess it. رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا. Oh our Lord, we've wronged ourselves. وَإِنَّ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا. And if you're not merciful and forgiving with us, لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. We shall be among the losers. SubhanAllah, dear brothers and sisters, Allah teaches Adam to be humble. Nurtures that desire in him. When he sees it right away that when I made that mistake, I needed to be humble. And teaches him the words, and the words were رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا. Oh our Lord, we have wronged ourselves. And if you do not forgive us and bestow your mercy upon us, we shall be among the losers. Dear brothers and sisters, I'm asking you a question here. How many of us feel like that when we make a mistake? Be it with Allah or with human beings. Or do we even recognize that we've made a mistake? Oftentimes, dear brothers and sisters, we make a mistake. We commit a blunder. We commit a sin. We're not even feeling the pain of it. We don't even think that it was wrong. That's the worst. If you're feeling pain, and if you're feeling this humility that you need Allah to cover you, you're acknowledging it, you have hope, inshallah. Allah, inshallah, will transform you. But if that willingness to acknowledge guilt is missing, you're in deep trouble. And I'm in deep trouble with Allah Azza. Because remember what happened with the shaitan. Landed in hellfire because of that arrogance. SubhanAllah, dear brothers and sisters, how much we need that dose of humility with Allah Azza. To see our very weakness, that we're flawed creatures, that we're filled with shortcomings, that we are capable and prone to evil and sin. But we're not, dear brothers. We always put ourselves on high pedestals and we judge others. We even judge Allah Azza wa Jalla. Yet this is the story, dear brothers and sisters, the story of creation that carries a divine instruction to humble ourselves before Allah. That in that moment, if you catch yourself doing that, if you catch yourself, dear brothers and sisters, constantly telling Allah, Ya Allah, I am weak, and I acknowledge my guilt, and I confess it sincerely. If you catch yourself doing this, dear brothers and sisters, these are the greatest moments of your life. This is the very gateway to Iman, inshallah. It will soften your heart. It will transform your soul. It will allow you actually to receive the light of Allah Azza wa Jalla. It will remove that darkness from your heart. You know the harshness that we feel? Inshallah, it will remove it from your heart. But without that acknowledgement and humility, you're not going to go anywhere. But towards the path of destruction that the shaitan has taken. Story upon story in the Quran that illustrate this, dear brothers and sisters. In the story of Yusuf, we see similar lesson being struck. The wife of the Aziz, dear brothers and sisters, she wanted Yusuf. She desired Yusuf alayhi salam. What did she do to get him? She was willing to do anything to get Yusuf. But Yusuf feared Allah Azza wa Jalla. So when she came in that room and she closed the doors and she wanted to commit the sin with him, locked up the room where nobody can see, he refused. Wasn't it true? So she put herself on him. She wanted to seduce him into committing a major sin. He refused. What did she desire? She desired him. What did she do? She essentially made a transgression against Allah Azza wa Jalla. But in the aftermath, when the incident was revealed, what happened? She falsified it. She lied. She was not willing to acknowledge guilt. What happens with that, brothers? She plots against Yusuf and she causes him to be put in prison. But what happened? The ultimate loss. She lost her own soul in the matter. And she lost the very man she desired. Fast forward in the story. Look at how Allah is nurturing her soul and teaching her. When finally the truth comes out and Yusuf is in prison, subhanAllah, 9 years later, 9+ years later, the king finds out and he asks the woman who also desired Yusuf, what happens? What's up with Yusuf? What's the story with him? They say, we know nothing but good things about Yusuf. Truthful man. It was at that moment of revealing the truth that subhanAllah, Allah softens the heart of the wife of the Aziz. What does she say? She declares the truth. أَنَا رَوَتُهُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ. I am the one who seduced him. وَإِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. And he's a truthful person. When she was willing now to acknowledge it, look at what happened to her. She is able now to restore the dignity and honor that she has lost. And subhanAllah, there are traditions that actually say that she ended up marrying him. We don't know, they're not revealed in the Quran. But imagine, dear brothers and sisters, now the consequences of her acknowledging guilt. When she says, I am prone to evil, I made a mistake, I made a sin, he's a truthful one. When she was humble enough, dear brothers and sisters, Allah made her get the very thing she lost in the first place. How often, dear brothers and sisters, we lose things that we're desiring because we're arrogant. We're refusing to acknowledge guilt or shortcomings, or to say I'm sorry, or to apologize. We lose the thing we're seeking. Yet not knowing that if we have let it go, humbled ourselves before Allah and His creation, and said, I am sincerely sorry, forgive me, please forgive me, that Allah will bring you and give you the very thing you're looking for. Story upon story, dear brothers and sisters, but Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed to us in the Quran that really teaches us to be humble. The story of Yunus alayhi salam, dear brothers and sisters. Wallahi, one of the best stories that capture the meaning, capture this lesson. Yunus' order commanded by Allah Azza wa Jalla to go deliver the message to his community, to the people of Nineveh. The people of Nineveh hear the message and they reject it completely. And I want you to put yourself in his position, a prophet of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And think back to your own life when you're calling people to something, you're trying to convince them of something, right? You're trying to change your family, you're trying to change your friends, you're trying to persuade them of something that you deem sacred. What if they reject it? What if they say you're a fool? You don't know what you're talking about. How angry will you become? Are we judging them right away? Do we abandon them in protest? Do we start protesting Allah when the situation in our lives is so discouraging? How often do we complain about our families, dear brothers? How come Allah give me those parents? How come Allah give me those children who are rebellious? How come I don't have money? How come this and that? We're constantly complaining of the situation Allah put us in. And we want to depart from it, run away from it. Look at what happens to Yunus. He delivers the message. They reject him. What does he do? He becomes impatient. And he denounces the wrath of Allah on the people. He essentially says, you're undeserving of the mercy of Allah, you're going to have. So he judges them. And in the process misjudges the mercy of Allah. Misjudges the forgiveness and the promise and the rahmah of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So he departs in wrath. He leaves the city, declaring these people undeserving of the mercy of Allah, and he runs away from it. He's unhappy. So he is hasty. He doesn't, in one moment he forgets about the wisdom of Allah Azza wa Jalla, who wanted him to stick to his post. We know what happens in the story. He ends up on a ship. So he ran away from a seemingly dark situation. Running away from it. Discouraged at his apparent failure, so to speak. Apparent failure. That the people have indeed rejected. So he's running to another situation. We do this all the time, dear brothers and sisters. We get discouraged by what we have. We think there's something better somewhere else, and we reject what we have and run away from it. Notice where he ends up. The people on the ship decided to throw him off the ship because they thought he's a source of a bad omen. So they threw him off the ship when they had a storm, that they encountered in the middle of the sea. And indeed he ends up in the sea, thrown into the sea. What swallows him? A big fish. Swallowed. Where was Yunus not too long ago? In a very difficult situation. Where does he end up? He moves from a seemingly dark situation into actually a real utter darkness. 3 levels of darkness. Notice where he is. In the belly of the fish. Middle of the sea. At night, perhaps. Darkness upon darkness. Physical darkness. Notice this. Think about, brothers and sisters, just think of the walls of the stomach of a fish. Constricting him. Pushing against him. I mean, think of yourself, just think of yourself being in a closet. Put yourself in a closet and see how long you live. What if you're in the belly of a creature? Walls pushing against you. What about the smell? Have you ever smelled something coming out of the stomach? Now you're in the middle of it, swimming in that awful foul smell. What about the acidic secretions from the stomach that dissolve food? Now that's on his skin. Imagine that those acids on his skin. Imagine that darkness, brothers and sisters. What could possibly bring him out of this? What could possibly rescue Yunus out of real darkness? An affliction like no other affliction. Brothers and sisters, all laws of this universe say it's impossible for him to get out. Hope is dashed. There's no hope. How can you get out of it? You're swallowed. You're in the belly of a creature in the middle of the sea. Where does he turn? This is the moment in which he instantly realized what he needs to go to Allah. Again, Allah teaches him like he taught Adam. Taught him like he taught Adam. What was the thing that Allah teaches him? What does he make him say in order for him to be rescued? Allah teaches us in the Quran, dear brothers and sisters, precisely what we need to say in that situation. And what Yunus needed to say, Allah declares in the Quran, وَذَنُّونِ إِذْ ذَهَبَ مُغَاضِبًا. And look at the story, or Yunus alayhi salam, when he departed in wrath. He left the situation in wrath, in anger. He left the city. فَنَادَ فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ. So when he found himself in the layers of darkness in the fish, Allah taught him to say the following. He cried out from the midst of the darkness, لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ سُبْحَانَكَ إِنِّي كُنتُ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. One very simple statement. Allah taught Yunus from the heavens what to say. And it was an incredibly powerful formula to take him out of the situation. Oh my Lord, La ilaha illa ant. There's no God but you. Subhanallah, glory to you. Inni kuntu min al-zalimin. Indeed, I am among the wrongdoers. Again, you notice the statement? What does it reveal? Humility, glorification of Allah, and saying, I'm sorry, I'm guilty. I am guilty. Instantly, Allah commanded the fish to what? To let him out. To release him. An impossibility, there's nothing impossible with Allah who is the causer of causes. Right? He subdued all these factors uniting against Yunus to keep him locked up in the belly of the fish, and he released him. Instantly, dear brothers and sisters, by the power of what? The statement he made. But dear brothers and sisters, the very statement that he made, in which he says, Oh Allah, I am guilty. There's no God but you. I glorify you. I am guilty. How was he able to say it? It's because he was always among the worshippers. He worshipped Allah in times of ease. He was humble before, like Adam alayhi salam. He submitted to the will of Allah. And because they glorified Allah in times of ease, when the time of difficulty came, Allah softened their hearts. And allowed their hearts to understand that they needed to acknowledge what guilt. Look at the shaitan, he was arrogant. Allah blocked his heart. Made him not see that he needed to be humble and acknowledge guilt to be saved. Yet with Yunus alayhi salam, Allah says, فَنَجَّيْنَاهُ مِنَ اللَّهِ. We instantly delivered him from his distress. وَكَذَلِكَ نُنْجِي الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And for the believers who can see and perceive, who understand, we apply the same formula. We will deliver them from distress when they come to Allah with such humility and make this statement. Indeed, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, dear brothers and sisters, says that the supplication of the Yunus, the supplication of Yunus alayhi salam, there isn't a time in which a Muslim is in trouble, is in an affliction, is in a difficulty, and he says the statement, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minadh dhalimin. Oh my Lord, there's no God but you. Glory to you, I am indeed among the wrongdoers. How powerful is this supplication? The Prophet ﷺ tells him, if you sin and you're in trouble, Allah will provide an exit. Who would trust that, dear brothers and sisters? Yunus was released from a belly of a fish. Would you trust that Allah will release you from your difficulty and provide an exit out of it? Dear brothers and sisters, inshallah you will if you trust Allah Azza wa Jalla. And also if you recognize that you are weak and need Allah Azza wa Jalla, that you are prone to evil, that you're prone to sin, that you need to humble yourself and say, I'm sorry to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Every single time you are acknowledging that with your brothers and sisters with Allah, Allah will take your heart. He'll make your soul grow, inshallah. He'll give you that iman in your heart. He'll enlighten your soul. He'll make you mature. He will empower you. But it's not going to happen, dear brothers and sisters, without that dose of humility with Allah Azza wa Jalla, in which you acknowledge it. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make us all humble. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to grant us His forgiveness and mercy. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Brothers and sisters, in our journey of life, there are those who are willing to learn and grow. And there are those who are stuck in their situations refusing divine instruction from Allah. Allah is the creator of your soul and my soul. He knows what works for you. And there are gateways or keys to get the mercy of Allah. Keys, literally. Imagine how many problems we face, how many difficulties, how many blunders, how many sins we commit that keep landing us in darkness upon darkness. And we complain, and we protest, and we whine. Not knowing that if we were to take the keys from Allah Azza wa Jalla, Allah will inshallah bestow His mercy upon us and enlighten our hearts. But it's for those, dear brothers and sisters, again, who are humble enough to take the lesson from Allah Azza wa Jalla. Not to trivialize these statements. There's a purpose behind every word in the Quran. Wallahi, dear brothers and sisters, these are treasures, divine treasures from Allah Azza wa Jalla. In a simple dua, if you get the meaning of it, and if you start applying it, trusting Allah Azza wa Jalla, see what Allah will do in your life. These are transformational moments, dear brothers and sisters. Allah teaches us in extraordinary ways. The reason why you're in trouble many times is perhaps so that you can go back to Allah and humble yourself and say, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minadh dhalimin. See how you'll feel afterwards, brothers. Wallahi, dear brothers and sisters, you know it quite well that when you have, once again, problems with people, when you catch yourself saying, I need to really humble myself and say I'm sorry, even though I know I might be right. But let me go and say I'm sorry. What does it do to your heart before the heart of the person that you're talking to? You notice it softens? It makes you soft. You feel light coming into your heart. You feel better as a human being. And notice that when you're arrogant and say, I'm not apologizing, you feel that you're getting angry. You feel more animosity in the heart. And you repel the other human being. Further division, deeper division. Always an instant result, dear brothers and sisters. Allah is indeed nurturing our souls through this. Nurturing our souls and hearts. Who is interested in divine instruction? Who is interested in Iman, dear brothers and sisters? Who is interested in being rescued? Who is interested in receiving the mercy of Allah and His forgiveness? Who is interested in having a heart that is mature, that is better, that is noble? Allah is willing to put His light into your heart, to infuse it with His life and His energy, and with understanding. But are we willing to take the keys from Allah, dear brothers and sisters, and apply them on a daily basis before we get in trouble? Remember Yunus alayhi salam, dear brothers and sisters. He was able to see what he saw at that moment in the belly of the fish. He made the dua, but notice there's a possibility that he might not have been able to make the dua, and he might have been just angry, crying, forgetting Allah Azza wa Jalla. What made him say it? Allah declares in the Quran, فَلَوْلَا أَنَّهُ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُصَدِّقِينَ لَلَبِثَ فِي بَطْنِهِ إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. Had Yunus not been among those who glorified Allah before, in times of ease, so he was with Allah throughout his life. He turned to Allah in times of ease. He glorified Allah. He made istighfar in times of ease. If he didn't do this, Allah would not have made him realize what he needed to do at that time, which is to humble himself and say, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minadh dhalimin. Allah says he would have actually ended up in the belly of the fish for eternity. He would have been dead. Allah would not have rescued him. Amazingly, as one narration says, When he made the dua in the belly of the fish, he was worshipping, prostrating Allah to Allah in a place that no one has ever prostrated to Allah, belly of a creature. When he made this dua, guess what heard his voice? It's narrated in this hadith, your brothers and sisters, that the angels heard his voice. And they said to Allah, oh Allah, we hear a weak voice, familiar, coming from a far place. Who's that voice? Whose voice is this? Allah says, you do not know whose voice this is. He said, no, but we recognize it's a familiar voice. He says it's the voice of Yunus. They said the voice of Yunus, who's always been making dua to you, the one that you've accepted, you've been accepting his du'as, that you've been accepting his deeds, this Yunus? He says yes. And they turn to Allah with a supplication, oh Allah, rescue him in this time. Give him mercy in this time by virtue of what he's been doing. Who made dua for him? The angels, your brothers and sisters. When you make dua to Allah, the angels are hearing you and they're making dua for you indeed every day. And when you end up in trouble, they'll be the first to make dua for you and they'll recognize your voice when you're pleading with Allah, crying out. What's a better gift, your brothers and sisters? All resting on humility with Allah and saying La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minadh dhalimin. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, it will bring the heavenly treasures on you. On your soul first, on your heart. It'll change you as a human being. You'll find yourself becoming better. But ultimately you're getting the mercy of Allah. And an exit out of your difficulties, as the Prophet ﷺ, there isn't a time you're in hardship. That you say it sincerely, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minadh dhalimin. There is no God but you. You're talking to Allah directly. My Lord, there is no God but you. Glory to you. I am indeed among the wrongdoers. The Prophet ﷺ once again says, for us to remember, as we leave this place, and we exit out and go back to our lives. You say this, the Prophet ﷺ says, there isn't time you're in trouble, and you say it sincerely, except that Allah will take you out of your trouble and deliver you, inshallah, to safety. Brothers and sisters, let us, inshallah, go out of this place after our prayers, remembering the supplication of La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minadh dhalimin. It is indeed one of the most glorious of supplications. The quickest means to get the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jalla, but you need to be saying it all the time. To get used to it and to check on yourself, am I humble? Is it making me softer? Am I acknowledging guilt? Or am I just saying it to Allah, but with people I'm arrogant and I'm refusing to ever say I am sorry, I am guilty, I apologize. Brothers and sisters, you apologize to Allah, you apologize to people, even if you're right with people, see what Allah will do. He'll honor you, inshallah, elevate you. It will indeed change us in the day. Ask Allah Azza wa Jalla that He bestows upon us His mercy and forgiveness. Ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to enlighten us and understanding. Ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to the state ask, oh our Lord, there is no God but you. Glory to you. Indeed, we are among the transgressors. Oh our Lord, there is no God but you. Glory to you. We are indeed among the transgressors and the wrongdoers. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا واعف عنا وتولنا وانا احسن خلاصنا. اللهم اغفر للباقيات الصالحات اعمالنا. لا اله الا انت سبحانك انا كنا من الظالمين. لا اله الا انت سبحانك انا كنا من الظالمين. لا اله الا